Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I've just come out here in the dark and turned the light on to see if the oh god, BC Makai has actually got a nighttime fragrance, and it's very faint if it has. It's not filling the room. But I've just been going through my Facebook stuff, and somebody asked how to look after a certain hybrid because they couldn't find any information on it. Well, I went straight in and found all the information I needed. So on the Facebook post, I actually wrote out in great detail exactly what I did to find out what sort of hybrid this was. And I thought, that shouldn't be kept in Facebook on its own. That ought to be on my YouTube channel as well. So I'll cut the massive amount of essay that I wrote on Facebook and paste it in the description on this one. I never type anything twice. That's what cut and paste is for. But it basically was just taking an orchid name. Now, the person had actually found that the parents of the particular hybrid they've got, now sometimes you can't even find this out, but they'd got the parents, one of which was a hybrid, one of which was a species. Now, there's a site called orchideya.ca. Again, that'll be in the text in the description. And for the most popular types of orchids, certainly not all of them, and Dendrobiums are covered, you can look up a hybrid name, and as long as it's registered it'll normally come up. So it's got like a drop down list of orchid types that it caters for, and it's not an extensive list, but there's other sites that do similar things. This is just the one that I happen to have handy, shall we say. So anyway, I selected Dendrobium from the drop down list, and I don't type, especially with orchid names, because you can spell things wrong and come up with a blank. So I then cut out the name from the Facebook thing and pasted it into this site, and it got a hit. And basically it said, yes, I know about this hybrid. It was something to do with Frosty Dawn, which I have heard of, but it was I forget, but something to do with Frosty Dawn. Anyway, it comes up with the name, having found it, with a plus sign. And you open it up, basically. You start clicking on the pluses, and it'll open up what went in to make that hybrid, if you see what I mean. And eventually, you'll end up down at the species involved. And in this particular case, it was a relatively complex hybrid that involved several hybrids crossed together. But again, this site opens up those hybrids and tells you what species went into them. And anyway, I've worked out that a particular species was quite a large proportion of this hybrid. So I then just did a Google search on that particular Dendrobium name. Yeah? And you get a list of things come up, and I always head for orchidspecies.com. It's a very good starting point, and if it's a species, it'll come up on your list. So I opened that up and basically found out what Dendrobium section that particular species was in. It gives you an idea of what sort of elevations it's found in, what sort of environments. It gives you a rough idea, and from that you can read in the culture. You know, if it says it grows at 27,000 meters, feet, 100, I'll get there in a minute, you know what I mean, 2700 meters, it grows pretty flipping high up, and it's going to be a cool grower. And if it says found on the coasts at sea level, and it's in the Philippines, it's going to be pretty warm. So you do have to do a little bit of thinking, you know, a bit of geography. But you can work out the sort of temperature ranges. And if it comes from a certain part of the planet, like the Philippines, Myanmar, areas like that, and it comes from evergreen forests, you automatically know that it's going to get a wet season and a dry season. That whole area gets a wet season and a dry season. You know, this is just common geography knowledge, you know, schoolboy stuff really. Anyway, so that found that one out. And then that particular hybrid was crossed with a species. So to get a new hybrid, if you see what I mean. So I then did a Google search on that species, because I'd never heard of that one. And it turned out that was in the same Dendrobium section, formosae, which is the black hair type. So again, similar culture, similar sort of part of the planet that it's found on, similar sorts of environment. So you can then deduce that this rather complex hybrid can be treated like most of the species in that Dendrobium section. That took me about 2 minutes. Yeah? And it's not difficult. But what can be difficult is knowing where to look and how. So I thought, I mean, I've been doing this for ages, you know, it's just commonplace for me. Just cut and paste a name, do a Google search, look at what comes up. Several sites available for doing the similar thing for hybrids. And if you can find out a larger element of the species that go into a particular hybrid, you can judge your culture from the species identified. So anyway, that was a Facebook thing that's now become a YouTube thing. I don't mind doing it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not doing this in a way of saying go away and do it all yourself. I don't mind doing it, because as I'm doing it, I'm possibly looking up some species that I haven't heard of before and getting a feeling for, you know, if I do come across one of them, would I want one? Yeah? So I find it useful. Anyway, so in the description will be the text from the Facebook bit saying how I did it and what the actual Dendrobiums were called in question. And I hope it helps. And BC Makai has got no fragrance at the moment, and it's been dark several hours, but several people have said it lingers on into the morning sometimes. So maybe it's one of those things that needs to be in the dark for quite a long time. What is the time? Oh, actually my grow lights haven't been off that long, so perhaps it hasn't had a chance to get going yet. But I keep forgetting to come out and check, that's the problem. Anyway, hopefully this is useful. Some people can't be bothered to do their own work and would prefer to ask. And I'm one of those, I don't mind doing the work, so feel free to ask. You know, don't worry about it. Ask, I'll have a go. And if I can't find out, I'll say, I don't know. I'm quite happy to do that. But knowing the sorts of places to get some reasonable information and how to go about looking things up, it, for me, is a tool of the trade. And I come up with blanks sometimes, not with species. I do get people ask me about species that spell them wrong, and luckily Google interprets my bad spelling and normally corrects it for me. And I sort of think, oh, they must have meant that, and I can get round it. But yeah, certainly with species, the methodology should be relatively straightforward. But with the hybrids, not quite so easy. And I'm sure in the comments of this particular video, others will come in with some other sites that are good at looking up the parentage of hybrids. Because there's more than one. I mean, I just go to that one as a first port of call because it's in my stockpile. You know, it's just like a drop down in my computer, so I don't have to go thinking or anything, but doesn't always work. So having some backups would be good. So anybody that's got a site that they know of that's pretty good at putting in hybrid names and coming back with, you know, its content, its makeup, what went into it, great stuff. It all adds to our arsenal of being able to look things up and get a bit of decent information as to how we might look after our orchids. Otherwise you end up shooting in the dark, like I am, shooting in the dark. See you next time. Bye for now.